Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the scene.
Yo, what the fuck is up, Warped Tour? The state of the scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. I'm Sam. This is Margos.
I walk a lonely road. It's the only road I've ever known.
Is that as much as you remember?
It's the only lyric I remember, yeah.
Hold on, let me say. All right, take it from the top. I walk a lonely road. The only one that I have ever known. It's a lonely road.
Nah, quite.
So lonely. I'm literally all alone.
You did lose it there. Yeah.
What is this energy you're bringing to the show today? Why are we opening with Green Day?
I don't know, dog. Did you see the
what?
You didn't see the fucking lacrosse championship?
No, I did not see the lacrosse championship. What are you talking about?
Well, were you too busy watching the cricket?
Oh, you're very funny. You're very funny with your inside jokes. You're hilarious.
What joke?
So I thought we'd start the show this week with the coldest fucking take imaginable. I want to talk about this
cold take time. Go ahead.
Like it's a new segment?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a staple of the SOTS show.
I don't think I've ever been stopped in my tracks more effectively than you did.
Just
right
really
there.
took the wind out of your sails, huh?
I feel like I stepped in the street and got hit by a train. Anyway, as I was saying, I thought we'd start with a cold take. So somebody on Twitter posted what Gojira was charging for merch. And turns out they're charging what every fucking band under the sun is charging for merch right now.
Thousands
except in euros.
Of dollars and euros.
Right. So it's like you want a t-shirt, 40 euros. You want a hoodie, 80 euros. You want a fucking skateboard deck, it's 7,000 euros, right? Like it's merch prices currently in the year 2023. And I feel like I see a lot of people dunking on fans like, hey, you broke bitch, you can't afford it, then like deal with it. Like,
I'm saying,
go fucking wear your plain black Haid shirt, you loser. Which I think is kind of a weird energy because at the end of the day, like I see a lot of bands doing it. A lot of bands are like, yo, you don't understand. Like, this is what merch costs now, blah, 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 blah. Like I got to pay the venue $700 just to play here. And it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Are you playing both sides?
A little bit. Because ultimately, I feel like I feel this is one of those cases where I feel like the government has figured out how to make us, or like in this case, the government is like venues and Ticketmaster. They figured out how to make us fight each other.
You talking about big ticket?
Yeah,
big ticket master right now.
That's what I mean. It's like they figured out how to make us fight each other. So we're like squabbling over the prices of like a hoodie, while Ticketmaster charges me an extra $80 for that same Gojira show.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they got unidentified fees flying overhead. I feel you.
It's like, my guy, I would have bought 3 t-shirts with the service fees it costed me to get a ticket. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the band would have charged me half the price if Johnny Venue didn't slide down the railing at the end of the night to collect.
You're right. I think that
they got us fighting each other.
I'm going to take a harder stance here. I think that venues got to stop patting bands down at the end of the night and do it to the goddamn fans as they're walking out the venue.
What are you talking about? Start taking money from fans?
Where are you going? Stop them on the side of the road and just flip them upside down and shake the change out of their goddamn jeans.
Like I'm walking to my car after the show, and like the venue owner like comes out from the alley and like hits me with a baseball bat and takes like my last $8.
You're opening the door and someone just shuts it right away.
They've turned us against each other so we can't see the real evil. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like obviously we're all bummed out that a fucking hoodie that used to be $40 3 years ago is now $80. Because we want to buy it, but we also want to eat and pay rent. So, like, they've got us totally fucked, and then they pin us against each other.
You know what this is?
What?
Sceneflation.
That's precisely what this is, this sceneflation.
And we're going to get to the bottom of it. This episode, tune in.
All right. It all started with the... Hold on. What do they call that thing when, like, the bottom drops out on the whole economy?
The Big Short.
Not the fucking Big Short, bro. The Big Short is me when anybody over 6 feet stands in front of me at a concert. All right, enough bullshit. Patreon.com/SOTS podcast if you want to support this show because you think we're funny or you literally have nothing else in your life and you need us. So
and
if you don't want us to go away.
Prices are going up on the Patreon.
Oh, should we raise prices?
$80.
That's a good idea, actually. We're doubling all the prices for everything.
Our merch store prices on the up.
One Gojira long sleeve if you want your name in the credits of every episode of this podcast.
And that's monthly.
A signed drumhead if you want to choose Marcus's opening lyric for the show.
A lot of unused drumheads lately.
Listen, you sign up, you get access to a bunch of shit early, plus exclusive stuff, plus we'll send you some stickers just for joining the Patreon. And if you love those stickers, we have like a whole tier where you get a sticker every month. This month's is me and Marcus kissing like they do on the My Chemical Romance album. You know the one.
No, more topical.
What do you mean more topical?
In that fucking Jonah Hill movie on Netflix.
What Jonah Hill movie?
It's a
on Netflix?
CGI kiss, okay?
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Fun story. The kiss on the cover of 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge is also CGI.
They faked it.
It's not real.
They faked it.
It's not real. It never happened.
They had us all fooled.
Every link you need is in the description of this episode, including the link to our Patreon, as well as our Discord, merch store, socials, playlist. Every song you hear on the show, you can find on that playlist. Marcus, we got some bands on the spotlight this week.
We got a couple.
The Spotlight.
Tether and their song, The Deciders. Post-hardcore from the UK, Tether are self-described as a beacon of hope in a hopeless world. You can follow them at TetherLDN on Twitter. Marcos, for me personally, every post-hardcore band is a beacon of hope in a hopeless world. So they fit right in.
It's like I don't know if a band has ever had like a better bio.
It's a strong bio. It's a strong bio.
This is every band's like mission statement, but this one actually came out and said it.
If you like this song, read this band's full Spotify bio because they go 12 steps further than this. Bro, they're like, we're a beacon of hope in a hopeless world where everything is corrupt and and venue prices are insane and hoodie prices are crazy and fucking Manic and their brand new song Into Oblivion.
You have me wrapped around your fingertips. If you dropped off of a bridge into oblivion.
Alt-rock trio from Nashville, Tennessee. They have a new album dropping spring 2023. You can follow them at manic.band on Instagram. Marcos.
Is Tennessee is that considered Southern charm?
Yes.
Like, is that south?
Yeah. That's south. That's south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Just a little bit of just Southern charm alt-rock.
Alt-rock trio from Nashville? Would that not be Paramore? Is this the prodigal child to follow the great scene band? Are they next?
They're next up.
Yeah. All rock trios from Nashville, Tennessee. I've literally never missed. Iconic and their song Wall of Stone.
Another night, no sleep. Memories of you on rewind. This feeling I can't.
Alternative rock from Copenhagen, Denmark. This is their debut single. You can follow them at Iconic, IKONIKCPH on Instagram.
Iconic, proving to us that Copenhagen is a real place.
Also south of the
Thought it was a
Mason-Dixon line,
myth.
funnily
It
enough.
is.
It's the south of Denmark, for those who don't know. So we listened to some albums this week.
The breakdown.
3 of them.
Yeah.
Let's kick off with Heritage by Distant. This is the Rotterdam, the Netherlands / Bratislava?
Bro, you had such confidence going
I
in. Take it
did.
from the top, bro.
I felt pretty
This is
good
the
about
Rotterdam,
Rotterdam.
the Netherlands / Bratislava, Slovakia Outfits' 3rd studio album released February 10th via who?
Century Media Records, baby. Heritage consists of 10 tracks, clocks in at around 47 minutes, and is the follow-up to 2021's Ions of Oblivion LP. I said it clocks in at around 47 minutes. I'm pretty sure this album clocks in at exactly 47
It's precisely
minutes.
47
exactly
minutes.
47 minutes.
That's how much time they had in the studio that day, and they cut it. There was supposed to be a whole other song on this album. A lot of people don't know.
Yeah, well, so fun fact, you're
Yeah.
right, Sam. It's how much time they had in the studio that day. This was all a one-take album, recorded in one day. That's it. That's all it was.
For those who don't know, that's actually how all albums are recorded in Bratislava, Slovakia.
So I forget. We did, or I know I've heard Ions of Oblivion, but did we review that on the show? I feel like the answer is no.
I feel like the answer is yes. And this doesn't speak directly to this band and how I felt about them, more so the amount of albums that you and I cover. What's crazy about this? For me, the thing that jumps to mind immediately is that I'm pretty sure I remember the artwork being like a praying mantis.
I don't know. If
Like
it's
praying
exactly
like praying
that.
mantis, like monster ass praying mantis.
It's a monster-like
Mm-hmm.
thing. And one thing I'll hand right off to Distant right at the top
Mm-hmm.
is that their album artwork kind of goated.
Bro, it
Kind of
goes
goated.
so
This
crazy.
is no fucking exception. If you haven't seen the artwork for Heritage yet, it literally looks like a fucking Magic the Gathering card had a baby with a Northlane album, and then I know. And I know that like some of you might be lost, but like go look all of those things up
Reasonably so.
first, and then go look up the artwork for Heritage. Also, lead character in whatever concept story is here looks like fucking Vessel from Sleep Token's evil twin brother, Kegel. I've been trying to think of a name for like what Vessels.
I don't hate that. I feel like it definitely undercuts, the scarier aspects of
Yeah.
what like you'd
Well, they
expect
look
a villain to
they
be.
look
But
a little jacked in this artwork.
yeah,
It's a really great
Kegel.
Kegel.
Yeah.
So this artwork does a really great job of kind of setting the tone for this album because
Yeah,
at
like I
its
know I'm gonna
core-
listen to a deathcore album when I look at this
Well,
art.
no,
Like
no,
that's
no,
a
no,
given. That's a given. That's a given.
Further than that, I think at its core, this album is nasty and cool. Which again, like you said, like that could be just any deathcore album. But this, one of the things I think that separate Distant from a lot of the peers they have in this scene is that this band's got a lot of flair, a ton of flair, and you see it in their artwork, their approach to marketing, and also specifically just the music. Like sonically, I think that like they've got a lot of big moments that they really sell you on, and I think that for me, like it makes Distant really stand out.
I think the thing about them that
Specifically on this album too, which is why I brought up Ions of Oblivion earlier. It's like I listen to Distant now in 2023. Crazy, that year sounds so fake. I listen to this band now as opposed to in 2021, and like I think we've really kind of found our footing, and now it's starting to really translate specifically for me. Like this is really working to kind of show my cards nice and early in this review.
You know what I think benefits this band a lot is that I think deathcore as a whole have really found their niche currently in what works best for that genre. And I think Distant knew exactly how to balance themselves so that they would fit in neatly alongside of a lot of other bands. You know what I mean? So for me, Distant sounds like a lot of what deathcore bands are doing right now. And I think they're doing it just as well as they are.
It's got a great energy, like all throughout. I think one band that sticks out to me as someone this band reminds me of is Chelsea Grin. I don't know if you agree or not.
No, I think I picked that up as well.
Yeah, it's just a really fun, bouncy record at times, and other times it's actually really strangely compelling in areas you wouldn't expect it to be. I think that this album starts off on a really cool note with the opening track Acid Rain, which is an instrumental that's a lot moodier and a lot more like of a tone setter, and not in the sense of just like, hey, here's a minute long breakdown and here's what you're going to expect for the full length of this album. It takes it a lot further than that. It's more of like an approach or an exercise in like world building, because that, like, I know that this
sets the stage.
This band, to the best of my knowledge, does conceptual albums. I know that the first one, the second one, I believe wrapped up the story that they started in the first one. I don't know where this album falls story-wise, but like they do a really great job of building atmosphere and, like you said, like setting the stage for what you're about to hear. And it makes songs down the line like Paradigm Shift and then later on like Argent Justice really stick out because of the contrasts that those songs have in contrast to Acid Rain specifically.
If we're talking about sticking out, let's pause for a second on Argent Justice, which has half a dozen features: Suicide Silence, Amur, Abbey Falls, Arcanius. I'll list them all: Angel Baker, Body Snatcher, Cabal Carcosa, Crown Magnetar, Paleface 1056, and Worm Shepherd.
All great features, by the way.
But fascinating to decide that we want them all on one singular track. You know what I mean? Do you think that idea works as a whole, or that you maybe lose a little bit of each individual artist when you kind of stuff them all together on one track?
Yes and yes. So, or no and yes. I think that this song, I think all of the features get kind of blurred together in a way that it's hard to pull, the Body Snatcher feature in comparison.
For me, it was Amur that popped out the most.
Magnetar feature. Yeah, Amur pops out. The cool thing though is opposite side of that coin is it's such a spectacle knowing that at least within 1 minute you've probably heard 3 separate features and maybe you weren't able to pull it out, but it's such a cool event. We're like even separate from this album, seeing a track like Argent Justice, which was released as a single, have like a dozen features like you said. Like that's a spectacle. That's an event. That's something that, especially without having heard it, if you were to check out this album, that's the one you have circled on the track listing that you're just kind of getting through tracks 1 through 6 or 1 through 5 to get to that track.
Right. Well, an incredible aside here, but this band is actually going to be touring with Angel Maker, Body Snatcher, and Paleface
They're
pretty
gonna have
soon
14
here.
people on that stage.
Right. And I'm kind of excited about it for what it's worth. That's almost like the perfect version of this, is that we can recreate something like that live. Let's talk a little bit about the other feature on here, the title track featuring Will Ramos from Lorna Shore.
So I think that was an impressive show of restraint on this band's part, is just saving one last feature for its own track.
You're right.
And this band absolutely knew what they were doing. They said, hey, here's the big ticket feature, because Will Ramos is the frontman of Lorna Shore, which is the biggest band in deathcore at the moment by far, and they kept him for the fucking title track.
That is a very interesting
perspective.
Move. Yeah. Part of me also wonders if someone like Will Ramos from Lorna Shore goes, no, if you want me on a feature, it's, in this capacity. And that is, a suggestion, because trust me.
Yeah, trust me.
And to be fair, I hear that song and, I get it.
Well, what's funny is, as much as I love Argent Justice, that title track stands out a lot more.
Absolutely. For me, the tracks that really stand out on this are honestly the ones you've named. But in addition to that, I think the closer, Plague Breeder, is absolutely incredible.
Plague Breeder is so cool. And what I will say too about this band is, like, I think that, like, aesthetic wise, they knock everything out of the park. Like, not just the artwork, but the way that this band, like, names their shit. Like, a song on here called Plague Breeder, like you just said, right before that penultimate song, Orphan of Blight, is such a fucking stupid title, and I love it so much.
Yeah, they know exactly what they're doing. I think overall, the thing that works best about this for me is that it never really dulls my senses with its aggression. I think when you get albums like this and you've got 47 minutes of just sort of nonstop aggression, and you kind of have to figure out a way to sort of give each individual song some personality so they stand out from one another and they keep things from feeling fresh. I think that's where Distant really succeeds, is that I get to the end of this album and I don't feel exhausted by the proceedings. I feel like energized. And I think each song kind of grabs you in a completely different way, and it keeps everything from feeling blurred like just one glob of anger that a lot of other deathcore records have been in the past.
On that note, to this album's credit, like you mentioned, it doesn't really wear on you. So, like, surprisingly, this is an album that when it's over, I just want to start listening to it again.
Yeah, it was easy to roll back into this one.
Which, as much as I love deathcore, like, that is not typically my immediate reaction having finished an album. And, like, typically it's, I need to go fucking decompress or something. I need to go try something different. I need to stop listening to music for an hour. This is like, hey, this isn't too unlike a lot of the stuff you're already listening to, but we do a ton of good things in between all that.
It gives you a lot to dissect.
Really inspires re-listens, and yeah, a ton to dissect. So I was super happy with Heritage by Distant. We also listened to Soma by Half Me. This is the Hamburg, Germany outfit's debut studio album. It was released on February 17th via Arising Empire Records. Soma consists of 12 tracks, clocks in at a lean 35 minutes, and is the follow-up to a bunch of standalone singles spanning from 2019 through 2021. Like we said, this is their debut album.
This is one of those cases where the pandemic time lapse really fucks with my mind in a way that I see debut record and I think, well, that's strange because I feel like I've been listening to this band for a few years now. Like, why did it take us quite this long to get here? And then you remember a few of the things that have happened in the last couple of years.
I've been listening to this band since birth.
This album, this is gonna sound like a weirdly backhanded compliment, but this album was significantly better than my initial expectations for it. This is a very strong case of stronger as a full package than individually, which isn't to say that I didn't like the singles leading up to this. I thought they were strong, especially Ex Negativo with the Invent Animate feature, and Blacklight, which we'll get to. But I think everything really feeds into one another when you have the full capacity of the album in front of you, so that when I get to listen to this from start to finish, songs that sounded good before sound even better in the context of my assumed story concept being delivered by this record, which is weird because it almost speaks directly to the band's name, and they kind of play on that a little bit, where I think that this record sort of speaks to like a antagonist and a protagonist, but they're the same person, right? And the antagonist lives inside of that protagonist.
Hero / anti-hero.
Right, but I think it's more of in a sense of like, you know, the darkness and depression within an individual and the way that manifests itself on the outside. But what's so fascinating about this record is I think they constantly talk about them as if they're another person. So you have this almost dialogue between two people, but they're the exact same individual. It's really fascinating.
Now that you mention all this, I'm starting to look at this album like a fucking Gloom in the Corner album.
There's a line on the closing track which is named after the name of the band, right? Half Me, which I think also directly speaks to the narrative of what we're doing here. It's like layers on layers on layers. Real quick, a devil on a chain bearing control over me, and I think it perfectly sums up a lot of the other things that individual songs are constantly touching on. And that's what I mean when I say the full package here is just so well thought out that it elevates everything else that came leading up to it.
Okay, interesting. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to mention, because we don't see it very often, there's almost nothing better to me than when a band decides just to name a song after themselves.
This might be the best version of it because it's reflective of the concept of the album and then reflecting back on the name of the band. I just mean that I think it's a lot more well considered than it might have been in the past. But are you gonna like counter with like the prime example or something?
Well, Enter Shikari, like, does it beat that track? But I'm not 100% sure if we align on the prime example. You're talking about the band that has oversaturated that in the 1975, right? Who start every album with a song titled the 1975?
I think
or not.
I think this is a version of that. And when you bring in someone like the 1975, I feel like you start to reach outside of the general like the breadth of things that I'm talking about. Does not generally shoot outside of like this scene, right? So I'm saying when we're talking about bands within this scene, you know, Enter Shikari is a good counterpoint.
Enter Shikari
is a good counterpoint, and the 1975 I think is a strong example of how this is done well as this.
All right, yeah. To kind of just reiterate some of the points you made, this is definitely an album where I heard the singles, I was like, yeah, this is sick. And then I heard the album, everything in context, and I was like, oh no, this band is sick. This album is sick. Like, this is really solid for a debut album, you know, and that can be hit or miss. I do think, like, we've talked about this on the show in the past, like, a debut album ain't the same as a debut album. Like, a debut album today is not the same as a debut album in 2015 and backwards. Like, bands are built a little different nowadays. It's like sports, right? Like you had some good basketball players back in the day. Like, the ones you got now are like built a little fucking different.
I understand.
Like,
where you're
bands
coming
when
from.
they start now, like they'll start almost at their fucking prime, pretty much, with a debut album. Features on here are excellent. I really liked a recurring theme this week, and it is present in the next album we'll be reviewing, which is Shrezzers. The interludes. I feel like we got a lot of interludes this week, and I think that non-typically these ones were actually like adding to the experience. Like I always remember,
because they feel more like table setting and less like interludes, right? They feel like they're doing more to set the stage and sort of craft the atmosphere than they are just creating a pause within the record for you to like take a breather. And what's interesting is that if any record needs a breather, it's something like this, which is absolutely relentless from its start. And once again, circles back to sort of the nature of what it's talking about and the idea that it never stops and the constant of it is represented in the style that the band is delivering this story in. And then like at a very basic level, I do feel like the singles were probably the strongest in terms of like what are the bouncy metalcore songs that you can really walk away from this, slap on a playlist, and do
they were smart
live
about
well
it.
outside of this record. But my recommendation is to listen to the entirety, because I just think as a full product, it's very strong.
Yeah. Everyone's got a free 35 minutes throughout their 24 hours every day. Go spend some time with Half Me.
I thought you were going to say like Half Me, you know, they spend their 24 hours different. You know what I mean? You know?
They do. Everyone knows it. Sex and Sax by Shrezzers. This is the Russian Outfit's second studio album, released February 17th via Gentle Punks Inc. Sex and Sax consists of 14 tracks, clocks in at around 47 minutes, and Sam is the much anticipated follow-up to 2019's Relationships LP, which, you know, if you'd like to indulge me and take a trip down memory lane, we loved that album at the time.
I did enjoy that quite a bit.
It was a fucking sick album.
It was a banger.
It did feature an old vocalist named Sam, who departed the band a few years ago, probably like around 2020.
Now has their own project.
Yep. Replaced in this project by an individual by the name of Diego Silva, joined in like 2020. Band's been dropping singles ever since. I believe all of them ended up on this album, which is why you've got a nice solid hearty 14 track list. But
A full throbbing 14
full
tracks.
throbbing Sex and Sax, released February 17th. Sam, I'd like you to start with the first point you'd like to make
Yeah, of
during
course.
this review.
So, gun to your head, you can only have one for the rest of your life. Sex or sax?
All right. This might be a hot take.
Yeah,
Sax till I fucking die.
I'm with you, bro.
Is
go.
sax
Let's go, bro.
goated?
Sax is so fucking goated, bro. God, where to even
How
start
do
with a
you
record like
not
this?
Drop this.
You almost don't have to review this because this album sums itself up so well with its title. Like, this band knew exactly what they had.
It forces us to not even be able to critique, and like the fact that this album is called Sex and Sex and Sax makes it hard to review, because what is there left to review? You know what I mean?
It's honestly so difficult to come at this with any amount of like serious critical take.
Why are you dancing around this? The one critique we can make is that they didn't release this on Valentine's Day.
That's a fair point, actually. Given how well this would play
3 days off, like it was the same
in
week.
the bedroom. Like, what the fuck do you say about an album that has a track called Pornhub on it? You know what I mean?
Okay,
It's like, where do you even start? Is that where you want to start? That's where you want to start?
It is by far the worst track on this album.
What about it
Did not
didn't speak
click.
to you?
Did not care for the skit towards the end. Didn't care for the the rapping bits. It was in theory it was fine, but I just didn't really like. I think that was for me like a little off the mark. I don't know.
You know, it's weird because I'm with you. Where I feel the rest of the album is very sexy and saxy. This felt a little skeezy.
Yeah, it's
in a
little
way that like it was
skeezy.
almost out of character for a band that was originally called Shredding Brazers.
Yeah.
But it's like
But-
they feel very different than they used to,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it comes from the fact that there is a romanticism
Sam,
that
there's
the
a fucking
sax
there's a-
provides that is just like unlike any. And you take that and you do sort of the culture fusion this band does, where you've got songs in different languages, songs in more romantic languages for what it's worth.
Do we know exactly where Diego's from?
I do not. I know
All I
that.
remember
I know that they are
is-
singing in Spanish and doing
Right,
it
but what exactly is like the dialect?
incredibly
I don't know.
well, right.
Yeah, no, there is like a base level.
Oh, Diego's from Milwaukee.
Oh, shit, my bad.
Remember.
There's like a sultriness and a lot of it's the sax. Obviously, it's super present, super consistent.
But it's like they lean into. I feel like a lot of bands do that thing where they're like, "Hey, we're gonna bring a little bit of sax in, and we're gonna sex this up a little bit." This band like sexes themselves up for the
in the
sex. You know what I mean?
name.
It's almost like in reverse.
It's in the name.
It's because like we can't not be as sexy as humanly possible on a song that's got a sax that goes this incredibly hard on it. You know what?
But well, like you said, like I think that there's a certain level of like there are layers that having Diego sing in a different language really adds to the experience, because like yes, it's very romantic sonically in the sense of like yes, like the sax is there and sax equals sex and sex equals sax, but like also
We knew.
listening to Diego, serenade us
Croon a little bit,
some
right?
Spanish is it's great. Like specifically the song that stands out the most for me is I believe all in Spanish. Temperatura is fucking phenomenal. Comes in like
That's an
pretty much
absolute
right in the
standout track.
middle.
I agree with you.
And right before that, Libertad, which fucking has Michael Barr from Volumes. Some really great features.
The
all
features on this
around.
album go absolutely insane, but they're such fascinating choices because I feel like this band almost contradicts what it is that they set out to make by bringing in features that are so polarizing to the overall aesthetic of this album.
There's some weird ones on here.
Like
yeah.
bringing in like Veil of Maya and Thy Art is Murder on an album that is meant to be sexy, which isn't to say that those individuals aren't sexy in their own right, but their vocal style may not be necessarily attributed as
It's not the
same level of
dictionary textbook definition
Thank
of
you
sexy,
precisely
yeah.
for getting me out of that one, Marcos. And then what's funny is that when you have someone like Slicky D, where a verse like that might have the potential to do just that, it's odd that that's a swing and a mix.
Are they both
Lucas? Alternatively, is an absolute knockout of the park.
Yeah. So yeah, Lucas Velmaya Demure.
You're gonna ask me if Slicky D is from Born of Osiris, Marcos.
Are
No,
they
that's
both from Born of
That's
Osiris?
incorrect. Cameron is, I believe, the drummer of Born of Osiris, who's the additional feature on that song, but Slicky D is not a member of Born of Osiris, as far as I know. One of our patrons asked, by the way, sexiest song in the album?
We talked about it already.
It's Temperatura, right?
It's Temperatura. But additionally though, like players right after, like there's some just base level sex happening all throughout.
So-
it's on the artwork. It's happening sonically.
I think what's so incredible, and it caught me so off guard when I heard it, is how much Phoenix had the groundwork for what the entirety of this album was going to be.
Surprisingly,
And it came out
right?
like 2 years ago.
It was
like
their
I heard it
first
and I was
song.
like, "Holy shit, this made it!" It was the first song with a new vocalist.
With
You're
Diego,
right.
yeah.
Holy shit, I absolutely forgot that.
So you're right. Like talk about getting their feet under them straight away, having to pivot with a new vocalist and figure out what their sound looks like.
Right, and they've
moving
been hard at
forward.
work in the bedroom, making sure that these songs sound
Yes,
exactly
they
as good as they do with this final product here.
One thing I wanted to add was, again, this one has some neat little interludes, instrumentals that I do think add to the overall listening experience, which, again, that's typally not the case. So
You're just such a slut
crazy
for
to go
the sax
3
that
for
they
3
could have
this
done it
week.
at any point, and you would have absolutely fallen head over heels for it.
And then, Sam, do you know what mastophobia is?
Yes, of course.
Besides just
Mastophobia.
the title of a track on here?
Let me break it down. So obviously,
It is
a
the
lot of people
phobia.
would be like, "It's got to be a phobia of mastodons," but not realistic. I believe it's the phobia of chewing.
No, it's got to be the phobia of masturbation,
You think it's the
right?
phobia of masturbation?
Why are you out here
Looking up live on the
masturbating
show.
when you could be out here sexing?
Live on the show?
Live on the show. Hit me. What is it? Tell me it brings you to Urban Dictionary too. It's gotta, right?
It's crazy that
Sam's such a slow fucking typer.
It's crazy that we have a week where we're talking about VORE and mastophobia in the same episode.
When did that bring?
Although these are positive aspects of a woman's life, for some, woman's breasts have a negative significance, so much so that they end up refusing them. This attitude may lead to a mild or severe phobia, which we call mastophobia. So mastophobia is a fear of breasts?
Is it like the fear of breasts without like support? And that's where sports bras come in to like contain them, imprison them?
Mastophobia is the fear of titties.
It's the fear of titties.
It's the fear of titties. Also would have been an absolutely crazy name for this album if we can run it back and give it another shot. One last thing I want to touch on before we move on here, Mark, is sort of the genre fusion this band does, where there are points in this band where it sounds like they're remixing like the soundtrack for Sonic the Hedgehog before they flip over into like a Nightcore song and then run it back into post-hardcore.
Fucking Bad Bunny.
It's absolutely all over the place, but somehow they managed to reel it in a way and anchor it with that fucking godforsaken sax in a way that they managed to get away with Murder over the course of this entire album. And even though I don't think, like you said, that it's 14 for 14, there are a couple of tracks on here which maybe swing a little too hard and miss even harder. Pornhub is the standout for me.
Yeah, one that kind of hurts me a little bit is I wasn't exactly feeling Tabadachi, which features kind of from Pale Dust.
Right, because on paper it feels like such a an A+.
It feels like the biggest home run on here, and then in practice, like the album starts and it's like whatever, and then by track 3, I'm by the time that track ends, the song 23, track 3, it fully sells me back on this band in a way that I was like, man, weird to have to crawl out of the small grave you dug yourself at the top of an album with a track like this straight away.
I think if this
I was like, are there going to be a lot more ups and downs? And I think that while there, like you said, there are some downs, there's probably more ups across the board.
Oh, for sure. This is a case where I think you could have cleanly removed a couple, 2 or 3 songs from here and had probably a slightly stronger album for it.
I also think that we're fairly easy marks for this between the features on here and specifically the exact, like you talk about genre fusions, but there is a very specific overarching genre in the sense that this is essentially like Issues core that will always speak to our soul, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how much of this album manages to get away with existing simply off of vibes in a way that I don't think any other album. Like you could purely recommend this to someone. Like the vibes are just really strong on this record, and it kind of sums it up perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention: guitar work is so vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
Like the production, I guess, is really vibrant too. Just like lot of parts on here that just continue to sell you on their sound, on this album in general, on the band. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Go check it out. Sex and Sax, was
Sex
it?
and
Sex
both
and
of them
Sax.
together. As always, every song that you hear on the show, you can find on the playlist. Link for that in the description of this episode, along with links to our socials, our merch, our Discord, patreon.com/SOTS podcast if you enjoy the show and want to support. In the news this week,
The news.
Neck Deep have released their brand new song, Heartbreak of the Century.
First time that I've been wrong about you. You're so smart, but my life just ain't enough. Maybe that's okay. I was thinking about fucking myself anyway. It's not like me to be so weak. You got me good. You got
This follows their last single, Shut the Fuck Up, back in May of last year, and the band will be playing Download Festival this summer. Marks, the music video is self-described as, and very much is, a shitty Oscars.
Very apt description, captures the vibe immaculately. And between Shut the Fuck Up, STFU, and Heartbreak of the Century, Neck Deep are on a pretty fucking impressive tear at the moment. After, this is going to sound weird, I liked the last album, but it's not the Neck Deep I wanted. And these last 2 songs have been providing me the Neck Deep that I long for.
I agree, but I loved the last album, and it's
You
not the
loved
Neck
it.
Deep I wanted.
Crazy, right?
It's crazy how much this band sounds just like they used to. Marcos, you and I did a past present react over on our YouTube channel where we watched Gold Steps and this brand new video back to
What
back.
a novel idea.
To kind of see how
Pat
the
ourselves
band
on the back.
has grown. You can go over to our YouTube channel, link for that, also in the description of this episode to watch. Neck Deep sounds like a dorky ass pop punk band, and God bless them for it.
Yep.
Absolutely, God
Wouldn't
bless
have
them for it.
any other way.
They're almost 2 dictionary definition of the genre. Like Neck Deep is almost a poster child for like what it is I close my eyes and hear when I think of pop punk.
What's crazy now is I used to close my eyes, and that was what I heard, and I feared it. and I'm talking like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
So we've had this
probably
discussion before.
back in the
right?
day when they dropped
Right.
gold steps. But like nowadays, right? Like you close your eyes, you hear that, you're just like, oh, fucking give it to me.
Bruh, the 2014 Warped Tour pop punk kids were onto something.
They were
Right.
It's time we really did,
It's
remove
time
our
we-
caps and acknowledged that and
Gave due credit
give those 2014 pop punk kids their flowers.
to the real veterans of this scene who defended pop punk.
We haven't really gotten into the video.
Yeah.
I think that we've got one of the contenders here for what will ultimately be music video of the year.
You felt that strongly about this. Wow.
In the end of 2023. Yeah, I felt really strongly
Why?
about
What
this.
is it? What is it
nice
about
to
this that
see a
moved
band
you?
really invest in
Production.
in production, in an idea, like
Comedy.
this is a fun idea. It's the comedy really is what sticks out here. It's like, man, we do have a ton of bands in this scene that are funny, but like Neck Deep
We also have a lot of bands who think they're funny.
and Neck Deep think they're funny and they are funny.
Right.
And for all of that, like this plays, it's a really cool video to watch. There's like, there's a little bit of like a Into the Neck Deep verse going on where you have Neck Deep the actors
Right.
and then Neck Deep the band.
the thespians.
Will Smith is there. It's a whole thing. It's crazy.
Oh wow, you really
Yeah.
skip over a lot of the finer points
I
of this.
did.
So let's sort of maybe explain the video for our audio listeners real quick. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to watch it yet, essentially Neck Deep shows up at the Oscars. Thespian Neck Deep and pop punk Neck Deep, and we get the 5 Best Picture nominees of the year. Heartbreak of the Century being one of them. The other ones being, let's see if you can remember the name of any of these.
Silver
No, it was Gold Linings.
Gold
The
lining.
Scrapbook.
The scrapbook.
Come on, come on.
I don't have it.
I don't quite remember the other ones off the top of my head either. But all very, very strong contenders up until, of course, the band wins for Heartbreak of the Century, and they go up there and slap the presenter in a moment that still
Who's also Ben
carries-
Barlow, who's in this video 4 different times.
Yeah, Ben Barlow is in this
As a
video
different
quite a bit,
person.
getting slapped. And then we kick back to one of the band members, and he goes, "Keep my band's name out of your mouth."
Insane.
Absolutely insane. And obviously they're British, so they don't truly understand the weight and the gravity of a situation like that happened here on American soil. But they do a good job of poking fun at it.
Amity Affliction have released their new single, I See Dead People. It includes a feature from the late Louis Nux, a New Zealand-born rapper who passed away back in 2021. This follows 2022 single Show Me Your God, and both are presumably a part of Amity Affliction's yet unannounced 8th studio album.
Crazy this band is on their 8th studio album. I don't know why, because it makes a lot of sense, but it feels crazy at the same time.
The reason it's crazy, it's because I think like
How have I been listening to
Architects
music
are on
this
their
long?
9th.
Oh, that's a good point. I
Where
hadn't even thought
and
about
to
that.
me it's like, oh well, Architects have been around so much longer than Amity Affliction, and it's like, oh, I guess not really, but I don't know. I really enjoy this new track from Amity Affliction, and I would be lying if I told you it wasn't almost entirely for Louis Nux's feature, who was an artist I was unfamiliar with prior to listening to this. And a feature from that artist that really elevates this track and adds a lot of gravity, but also like much needed flavor to Amity Affliction, because without this feature, this is another heavier Amity Affliction track, and those are hit or miss for me. I think that a lot of it plays, but a lot of it also doesn't. But
It's
at
actually
the same time,
an incredibly good descriptor of the Amity Affliction. For me personally, they are a band that is very hit or miss. it feels oftentimes that they can do the same thing 5 times over, and 3 out of the 5 times it really connects, and the other 2 times it just doesn't, right?
At all, right.
But you're right.
Honestly,
What a difference it does to do something that feels slightly different by just bringing in a feature.
But this is like contained within this news story is an example of that. Like Show Me Your God came out and I was like, wow, this song is not it. Like I'm not feeling this whatsoever, to the point where I was like, I was really down on Amity Affliction for a little while before this song came out. And then I hear this and I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is great. And for all I know, this band could do exactly this the next time around and it won't work. So it's a really tough nut to crack. I don't know what the exact analogy is here, but like,
I think a lot of the weight of this as well is that the subject matter is always fairly consistent with the Amity Affliction. But when you have something like this, where you have like a feature, but it's a late vocalist who's no longer with us anymore, there is obviously a weight to that would not otherwise exist, right?
totally.
I think this band does a really good job too of selling the song with the visual, where they're performing completely shrouded in darkness before they flip that, and then suddenly they're
Literally.
like all red and upside down, and somehow that simplicity is a lot more poignant than a lot of the flashier aspects of other videos we may have seen from both this band and other artists.
Yeah, it is crazy how much they do with so little. And again, like, I don't know, I watch it and I'm like, is it because I'm very immersed in the track, or is it just that it's a really cool video? And I think it's both. It's a really great track, really cool video. Go check it out. Amity Affliction, I See Dead People.
Sleep Token have dropped their brand new track, VORE. New album Take Me Back to Eden releases on May 19th. This is one of 5 singles released this year leading up to the album. And the band recently hit a massive milestone, surpassing 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify, which has been the subject of a lot of discussions on the basis that we're beginning to, I think, figure out as onlookers the ways that you can juice up your monthly listeners, and the release style that Sleep Token has taken, where they, over the course of, I think, a month and a half, have dropped 5 songs and, also gone viral on TikTok, which never hurts, have found that their monthly listeners have skyrocketed in a way that they're beginning to eclipse a lot of the other bigger bands in the scene.
So to kind of break some of that apart, I think that you talk about how this band sort of mastered a single release cycle. I
mastered
partially,
it, at least in this aspect.
So I think that while everything Sleep Token does feels very tactical,
Mm-hmm.
it almost feels to me like they sort of stumbled into this one. I remember that when those first 2 singles off of what ends up being Take Me Back to Eden released, I think at the top of this year, there was a lot of speculation that this band would be releasing 2 singles a week until they just dropped the album or something like that. And I think that they almost suffered from their success in that it doesn't feel like this was ultimately where we were going to land.
Interesting.
I think that they were going to do that weird little release cycle, and that was going to happen. Like that it feels like that's what my intuition is telling me was their plan. And I think that they found success with one of those singles in a way that they didn't expect.
Right, that being
that
the
fire to
Summoning, which
spark.
did have a lot of,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, it went viral.
I don't think they expected that to spark a wildfire in the way that it did. And now it was like, hey, we have to take other calculations, which is just us being fucking smart. And instead of releasing 2 singles, spread them out a little bit, hey, we're the hottest new band out there at the moment. Here's an album. It's coming a little ways down the road in May, but now everyone has something collectively to look forward to.
It's fascinating because I feel what you're positing here is almost like this band in the process of succeeding stumbled into more success.
Yes and no, right. Well, in the sense that like, part of me almost thinks this band somehow is mad about it because like I feel like I would be in the sense that it does feel
Hard
like
to
they
read this
went-
band.
It is hard to read this band. Just the facial expressions.
Almost impossible.
They never
Poker faces
change.
across the board.
Where it's like, I don't know, like if I'm in this band, I feel like if I wanted to release it this specific way, I'd almost be mad that I couldn't. And someone forced my hand to have to approach it in a different way, whether, you know, and it's positive reasons, I think, but maybe
Right.
I'm reading into
But you're
things too
saying this in a
much.
way that it's like you're mad you can't go to the casino because you won $1 million on a scratch ticket.
Right,
You know what I
exactly
mean?
that, yeah.
And it ruined your plans for the day. But it's like, oh, what was me?
Right.
Marcus, can you explain to me? Maybe you need to bring up Google on this. What is VORE exactly?
Do I have to put that on my search? I feel like I don't know what VORE is, but I do in the sense that like that just doesn't sound like a great
What search
combination
engine do you
of
type that
letters.
into?
It's going right in Bing, baby.
God, imagine
You
being an AI that has to consume thousands of words of text on VORE in order to be able to give an appropriate answer. The things that AI have had to read.
So VORE in the Oxford Dictionary,
Yeah, right. The
in
only one I
the
trust.
Merriam-Webster, the old book, the good book,
Yes, yeah, the good book.
combining form. In slang, VORE means a rare sexual fetish
There we go. This is what I was looking
Where-
for. Thank you.
someone experiences sexual arousal from imagining swallowing or devouring someone whole, or from being swallowed or devoured whole. For some, it can include chewing people up or being chewed up as well. That kind of sounds like cannibalism to me, Sam.
Aside, I watched the movie Bones and All the other day and was not turned on at all. Let the record show. I think it was happier
Why are you
before
sweating,
I knew.
Sam?
I think it was happier before. It's hot here now. Suddenly it got hot in here. I think it was happier before I knew what VORE was.
So
as opposed to mastophobia, which I found fascinating.
what is fun about Sleep Token is that, like you said, Poker Face, hard to read this band. I could see it representing both.
If I nibble a toe, is that a VORE fetish? Or do I have to go like to a certain? Do I got to
We'll-
swallow a toe?
We'll go to the council with this question.
Yeah. Sound off in the comments.
I could see them saying like, "Hey, it's up for your interpretation, which definition it is." You know, we won't stop you.
Speaking of VORE, the visualizer for this goes absolutely crazy. So it's another Elden Ring boss because Vessel did nothing but play that video game for 6 months and it made it his whole personality. Except this one like spits venom out of like its hands and mouth and shit. It's
really
crazy.
gross.
It's absolutely crazy. These things get scarier as we go. So by the time we get to like track 10, it's going to be the most nightmarish like
Right,
creature
some
you've ever seen.
Doom boss.
Right, or a Lovecraftian.
Yeah. Cameron asks, "Is Sleep Token the next sensation like Spirit Box were?"
You know what's crazy about that is that when I read this question that they asked over on Patreon, if you'd like to ask questions on the podcast, you can go sign up, patreon.com/SOTS podcast. We've had so many spirit boxes at this point that it's not
crazy.
even that like you mean like Lord Ashore, you mean like Bad Omens. You mean, you know, it's like having these little like successes within the scene. I just think speaks to the way that our scene is just kind of firing on all cylinders right now. So there's almost an inevitability to them taking off.
Yeah, what feels a little crazy to say out loud is that the way that Sleep Token are like, as much fun as we have like memeing it and just being happy for this band, part of me has sort of grown a little numb to when bands explode now. It's like and it very well may have started with Bad Omens, where now everyone after them is just going to be like, well, yeah, no, of course, like Just Pretend explodes, dumbass. Like, what did you expect?
Right.
And of
I
course
remember you
this
saying
Sleep
that was going to
Token
happen
song-
years before it actually came out.
if you go back to the fucking Bad Omens review,
Wow.
I fucking gave that song the old fucking Dick Twist 3000. I had a fucking vision. I knew that it would be massive. I'm taking full credit for that one. Thank you very much. It's my favorite song on the album prior to who I was there. I was there when it happened, Sam. I was there. I was here. I etched my name on that song.
You're right. I feel like part of
upon
what
its
you're saying
release.
right now is that I see the words TikTok viral success and I'm like, oh, what is it, Wednesday?
Yeah, like what we
But Pierceville went viral for a song? Duh. Platinum went viral for a song? Duh. Bring Me the Horizon went viral for a song? No shit.
Sleeping with Sirens back in the news for going viral with a song.
Hey,
Like, duh.
Only a matter of time till like X, Y, and Z also have viral success because this scene is actually littered with talented artists.
Yeah, like and
And
man,
it's our time.
part of it actually might have been the fact that like Loveless, for example, might be the biggest artist that
That'd be a great
we've
example.
discussed on this show who's had a massive influx of popularity due to their success on TikTok. And it might be because we kind of got in at the ground floor with that act and like reviewed the debut before, you know, their covers started kind of popping off.
That's been the most fascinating part of this is me thinking about us reviewing the last two Sleep Token albums and the whisper of fandom that appreciated us covering those artists and now talking about this band, you know, like third biggest news topic of the week, or
easy.
arguably the biggest. We had another question. Marcus Whitney asked over on Patreon, if they announce a U.S. tour, who should support? Marcus, give me a 1-2. Give me direct and give me opening.
This actually is sort of a difficult question to answer. Just
You don't
kinda
know
off
who
the
works well
top.
with Sleep Token?
Hear me out. Invent Animate, I think, have like sort of a, and it might be just because of the fucking Midsummer video recently, but like there's a little bit of a cultish
They share an
It has to-
A24 vibe.
Yeah, to
Who else has
me,
got an
like
A24 vibe?
the perfect headliner has to have that A24 vibe. So it's Invent Animate, Sleep Token, but like there's probably an artist in between those two's popularity that fits in here, but I can't exactly place it. Do you have one?
Now I'm trying to think within this like very specific like thing that you laid out, like who is moody but in an eerie, creepy kind of way. You know who's one I'd actually slot in as the opener? There's a band that we've talked about a lot in the past. Their name is Paleskin.
I was actually just thinking that, yeah.
And they would be an absolute ideal. This is one of those
dark
cases
horse
where,
for who that vocalist
hey,
is.
let's
by the
let's
way.
say that, and this is impossible with the amount of singles that they're dropping at this rate. You're not getting enough music from Sleep Token. Paleskin should be your next pivot, and you're gonna find a whole other artist that's gonna like slide in neatly into this new developed taste that you have, right?
Yeah, interesting. We are due for some sort of announcement for a North American headliner.
Right, like they supported in this moment last year, but now it's time. It's Sleep Token time.
It's
now,
time
baby.
for
It's Sleep
well,
Token.
especially now. And again, like part of me thinks this is still more like suffering from a success where it's like they probably had a support slot lined up, and now it's like, well, shit. Now we have to do a headliner, so now we have to scrap all the fucking plans we had. Vessel's, you know, at home in his fucking.
Hey yo, Gerard away.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
100 GECS have dropped their brand new song, Hollywood, baby.
I'm going crazy. Little tiny Hollywood baby.
New album, 10,000 GECS, releases on March 17th. This is the third single from the upcoming album following Me, 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 and Doritos and Fritos.
I think that the Callous Boys might have started a quiet trend here where first of all we had Star Baby, and now 100 GECS follows up with this track,
Hollywood, baby.
Hollywood Baby.
You forget about That's Physics, Baby by
That's Physics Baby. Yeah, I'm blanking on the name too.
Yeah.
Top 10 album last
Top 10
year.
album last year.
Fucking hate this
The
show.
worst. I listen to too much music.
100 GECS remain awesome. Really excited for 10,000 GECS. Doritos and Fritos is a really cool song title. I don't know what there is to say about this band because like everyone has a really weird polarizing opinion about them, but every time I've listened to them, I have been impressed. I think that they have a really great energy. I think that this album, like we're in store for even better than what we've heard from the singles.
You're not talking about the fun stuff. First, Pool Kids wrote That's Physics Baby. It's an absolutely phenomenal song. Secondly, the video for this is absolutely insane. So Laura and Dylan are in a studio apartment, I guess, lighting fireworks and bringing that flair, that explosiveness to their fucking videos that they always bring, except this time they're not dressed as wizards, but it is just as fun.
Well, that part of me is like,
you were like weirdly upset about this.
There's a little bit of fun taken away.
It's like a Vessel came out on the stage in jeans. You're right. It's
You're
like
right.
suddenly
Like,
100
what
GECS aren't dressed as wizards, and it's like, hold on.
You're the fucking wizard band.
I don't know because they've also like sort of convinced me that their new metal look works
trucker
insanely
hat,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. You pointed out the Timbs. There was the Limp
We had
Bizkit
the
t-shirt.
checkered Vans.
Yeah.
Checkered Vans is a fun look.
100 GECS just continues to be one of the most exciting bands in this scene. So that album is like a gold star on the calendar right now for what could be, for me personally, like the dark horse of the year to just be, my complete personality when it drops.
Yeah, hope so. Acres also in the news with their new track, Nothing. This track features Garrett Russell of Silent Planet and is to the 5th single leading up to the band's new album, Burning Throne. Garrett had a really cool little thing he shared about this feature, and I quote, "My friendship with Acres was formed on the road, in rest stops between long drives, in graffiti-laced green rooms, behind dilapidated dive bar stages." I like that.
Nobody speaks like this.
Garrett speaks in Silent Planet lyrics.
Right, which is so funny, but also like I'm so jealous.
Garrett goes on.
I speak in ums, likes, and fucks.
Yes. Garrett goes on, "That's where this collaboration all started. However much I enjoy the band Acres, it could only pale in comparison to my love of the individuals behind the sound," which I think is really one of my favorite little comments I've seen before someone's
It's a powerful
feature. Like, just this is such a great thing to share because it shows that Garrett's not only in it because it's a feature that someone asked him to do. It's he's invested in this band. The band is obviously invested in Garrett. It feels like a very
significantly less transactional than a lot of other features appear.
Totally. And I think that I just like to see. It feels like some features happen, like, from a featured acts where, like you said, transactional and like.
Right. If this was Silent Planet, Body Snatcher, Angel Maker, Abbey Falls, a viewer.
Right. Where it's like here, it's like, like sometimes a feature will come and then like the featured artist won't even fucking like tweet about it or retweet it or talk about it or anything.
Right. It doesn't show up in the music video. Garrett Russell, very present in this music
and
video.
here it's like it's all very much part of the whole package, and I really appreciate that. And I think Garrett's one of the best people in this scene. I think Acres are really blossoming into one of the best bands in the scene. We talked about Pool Kids being a top 10 album last year. For me, Acres are picking up where they last left off, which was a top 10 album of the year 2020 or 2019, whenever that one dropped for their debut.
Mm-hmm. This track is very strong, but the track before this has arguably the strongest chorus of the year so far.
Yeah, 5 singles in. I'm really excited for Burning Throne. I think it's right around the corner in March. Mm-hmm. So
I think Acres does another thing too, and they're sort of not quite the beginning of this because we've already talked about 2 other bands, but I don't know if you've noticed a pattern this week specifically between Neck Deep, Sleep Token, Acres, the next 3 artists we're going to talk about. And I think it is that the British scene right now is absolutely out of their fucking minds in terms of like the the quality of material that they're putting out right now.
I don't know if we're actually just exposing our bias, but wow, this really is a fucking British invasion episode in a big way, huh?
Right. It's you and I like trying to live out our fantasy of who we want to be versus who we actually are. The song is absolutely phenomenal. I think Garrett Russell is the cherry on top of what was already a very strong track. And once again, their presence in particular is just like unlike any other. When Garrett comes in on this, like just them standing there gives me like a wave of euphoria.
Yeah, like you said, Garrett's got such a fucking insane presence. And that also carries vocally too. Really, really perfect feature for this track.
Yeah, agreed. Marcos Caskets dropped their brand new song By the Sound. The band has a run of headlining dates in the UK in late March and are currently working on their sophomore album, which, fingers crossed, may be out this year.
Announce it, motherfuckers.
But
What do you mean maybe out? Come on.
We're not putting words in their mouth, right? This is wishful thinking. It's wishful thinking.
Drop it.
So, once again, Marcos, we find ourselves with a British band in this scene who is firing on all cylinders and absolutely knocking it out of the park.
Yep.
And doing it in a very aesthetically pleasing way. So the video for this is the band dressed like they are at a wedding, not like playing at a wedding, but like literally part of the wedding party in a sense. Right. And there is a marriage, like small scale. You only really see the bride the vast majority of the time sort of walking up to the ceremony to be married, but you know there's somebody else there who isn't the vocalist who wishes they were there, who later sort of like
the vocalist wishes they were there in
precisely
the place of the groom, yeah.
themselves into the place of the person who is actually there. But there is this incredible scene in that music video.
They pull the veil over the bride, and
right.
then the bride walks down. It might have been the aisle in that instance.
Right, it was the aisle.
Veiled around the bride are like these see-through curtains, and you can see Matt, the vocalist of this band, sort of just kind of singing as the bride is walking down the aisle.
But almost like they're trapped behind that veil because they have like all these curtains, like as staged like the dress
Matt
setting.
Really sells like that desperation in their performance.
Sells it in their voice. There's a point where they hit like like this like 1, 2, 3 note. That is just like I was completely lost in it. It could have gone for the rest of eternity, and I would have been happy.
Really, really, if we had to highlight anything from the actual song itself, too, that bridge is fucking immaculate.
Let's get an album name so we can go ahead and say that this track and the last one are going to be on it, and we can start getting very excited.
Very excited. Enter Shikari, also in the news, with a new track, It Hurts. They have a new album called A Kiss for the Whole World. All of it releases on April 21st. This video, like the last, was also directed by the band and Shikari. Starting next week, the band will embark on a sold-out headlining tour in the UK.
As they should.
Big things happening across the pond.
What I love about this in particular is that the music video for this literally picks up where the last one left off. So that last video was essentially like the band is in like a parking garage, and it's a very like narrow view of them performing, but there's this small TV at the very front of their performance that, you know, Ro keeps running back and forth to, and he's like, you know, he's taking drinks from like this like liquor bottle, and like he smacks the top of the TV and stuff like that. And now like we go inside of that TV, and there's this whole like play happening. And it's just like this ever-growing comedy of errors in a way that leads to each of the individual members like dying and being outlined in chalk for them to then be investigated by those same members. Another multiverse video.
We talk about like Neck Deep being funny and Caskets acting their hearts out, but like Enter Shikari got it all. They're doing both.
They're funny, they act their hearts out, and they're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, really great video.
The way they stage this whole thing, and the camera will pan out, and you'll see sort of all these different aspects of the video that at one point or another you zoom in on and you see in a little more detail. And then you get to see them all sort of play out. And the whole thing feels like it's done in like one continuous take, where it's like, okay, here's the drummer and this is happening to them. But then they show up in the scene, and then we pan out and we get to see everybody, and then we drive back in.
Right,
and it's
yeah.
like, it's just like masterfully put together. And it's one of these cases where I've never been more jealous of the like creative talent of one individual, not to undercut the rest of the band, but the sheer fact that like Ro also directs this is just like such a monument to their talent. I can't wait for this album.
I did have a question for you. Between these two new singles, is this the most excited you've ever been for an Enter Shikari album?
No, maybe no. I wouldn't say that. Like I won't say that in a sense.
I'm not
in
saying,
like a
I'm not
negative or
saying
positive.
I think that.
I don't feel like a strong confidence to say that.
Okay, I'm just trying to like.
I think
really
right now
gauge
Enter
your
Shikari is
temperature.
benefiting a lot from the fact that I've felt like they haven't been around in a while. Like I feel like a lot of time has passed from their last album, so I'm craving it.
Do you feel, man? It's crazy to say this coming off of the last album, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
In its own right, but it honestly feels like I'm kind of falling in love with this band all over again.
The presentation is just
lately.
immaculate, and I think that's what's really working. Speaking of an immaculate presentation, Marcus, Barry Tomorrow dropped their brand new track, Heretic. The single features Lost Taylor of While She Sleeps. It's the third single from their upcoming new album, The Seventh Son, out March 31st. And the band's going to be supporting While She Sleeps this September when While She Sleeps, headlines Alexandra Palace.
These fucking British bands neglected to take an L this week.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's
They
like
said,
we even brought in like
"Nay."
another While She Sleeps just got brought in. You know what I mean? This is one of the most insane. So hey, another heavy banger from Barry Tomorrow, right? Like we're doing it here,
4 or
bro.
5 in.
We bring
Oh,
laws
third.
in to up the heavy a little bit. But what's really great about this is the absolute. You described it as Sons of Anarchy energy of
It's
this
Sons
video.
of Anarchy season finale energy.
It's like you zoom in and like the boys are sitting down to have a conversation. I mean, things are very serious right now. They could get bloody. We don't know
acting
yet.
their hearts out.
Right, absolute. Like, oh my god. Like I mentioned to you that this band feels like they are working harder than they have to. Like they were pushed up against a wall, and now they're like operating at 120%. And they didn't have to, but watching Daniel Winter Bates absolutely scream in the face of everybody on this set right here is just like one of the most exciting things to watch.
I do think that because they, and we're a little removed from it, but this band has a lot to prove in the sense that lost a founding member, face of the band, had to replace them. And you're right. I think that Dan sort of took a lot of this to heart, and like Fight or Flight got activated for this entire band. And like these fights, like they went fight, and it's incredible.
They went fight. They literally kill each other in this video. They start with Laws, which is crazy.
Laws dies, like shot in the fucking head.
Okay, spoiler warnings, a lot of people die in this video.
Everyone dies. Everyone
All of
dies by
them.
the end. Daniel Winter Bates gets fucking stabbed, shanked 50 times. I counted every last one of them. It was insane. And you're right. Like the entire time we're watching, it's just like I've watched a couple of episodes of Sons of Anarchy that play out this exact same
I've seen
way.
these conversations.
They go to
that-
the fucking table. They fucking they smash the gavel on the fucking table.
How real men solve their problems.
and
Precisely
then
correct.
backstabbing
I forgot
literally left and right.
I forgot about the gavel from Sons of Anarchy. Kim Dracula dropped their brand new song, 70 Thorns.
Run with the mic. take it personally. You were versed in virtually nerfing the herd. Believe heard at least 20 people take turns to speak. I'm sick of feeling like I'm a villain.
This track features Jonathan Davis of Korn, and the Australian trap metal artist will release their debut album this year.
I think Kim Dracula could actually get away with just calling themselves any type of artist. Like, it depends how they feel waking up that morning.
Right.
Because, that's how they're going into the studio. It's just like, you know what? Yesterday I was feeling Australian trap metal, but today I'm actually just feeling like low-key post-jazz.
Yeah, right, which is what this
And
is.
then they
It's
mix
a
all of them
post-jazz,
together.
power metal, new metal meets metalcore track
Right.
with slight trap influences all smashed into one. And I mean, if there's one thing that I really want to talk about when it comes to Kim Dracula, it's not that they're this absolute bizarre combination of genres, even though that makes them a lot of fun. It's that their visual aesthetic is absolutely stunning. Like, seeing all the makeup on the members of the artists, the way that they integrate Jonathan Davis into this music video, where Kim it's weird because I want to call like the vocalist Kim Dracula, but then also it's like, is the band called Kim Dracula? But our vocalist walks up and opens like this like music box, and it's like a little theater, right? And inside of it is Chord
Performing, yeah.
right, and delivering honestly maybe one of the best Chord performances in the last decade, respectfully.
The most compelling Jonathan Davis has sounded since like the OOs, in my opinion.
Since the Weird Alice in Wonderland the cover album.
You mentioned like aesthetically, like we don't want to get caught up in like the genre, because like aesthetically all of this is pulled together in a really impressive way. But I do think sonically that is the case too, because like we've heard only between the two of us like a couple of Kim Dracula songs at this point, and all of them have sounded vastly different from the last. But I know that they're still Kim Dracula songs, because I think that it's transcending like just being any type of genre or whatever. It's the energy, it's the vibe. Like, that's how you know it's a Kim Dracula song. So it could sound like anything.
It's the presence,
which is really why it's an artist that I feel like we're quickly attaching ourselves to. It's because they're just really cool, and anything they do sounds really cool.
It's right. It's almost like if this was a hard swing and a miss, it's still one of the most fascinating things I listened to this week.
Yeah.
Chelsea Grin dropped their brand new track, Fathomless Maw. New album Suffer in Heaven, the follow-up to last year's Suffer in Hell, releases on March 17th. The band also announced a headlining tour alongside Carnifex with support from Left to Suffer and Of Soulsure, which starts this April.
It's a banger tour. It is a banger song.
That's a big boy deathcore tour.
It's a big boy deathcore
Because all the
tour.
big boys of deathcore touring
So
together to sing deathcore.
Big boy deathcore tour stamp of approval on that one.
That tour is a glass of water and an Advil before you go to bed.
Two Advil.
But that's correct. 11 and a Benadryl to top it off.
We loved Suffer in Hell. This is our
I really
first
enjoyed Suffer in Hell.
taste of Suffer in Heaven. And it is, right?
Is it? I don't know.
It
You
is.
paused me in my tracks right there for a second. I feel like they did drop another track, but no, I'm not positive.
Maybe I'm not positive. Anyway, Fathomless Maw is a good start for this album rollout, or it's a good like second taste of it. I don't know. Really excited for Suffer in Heaven. I am down on one thing though.
Sing to the Grave came out before
me.
this.
I really liked that song too.
And I was almost positive too, but you really threw me when you said first one.
Sometimes you just gotta
I was like, was that a
confident.
late single off the last album? That doesn't sound like the move there.
Well, it's all gonna be the same album when it's all said
Tell me how
and
you feel
done.
about the video.
It's a little lackluster. And I think the reason why is because, especially in the Tom Barber era, especially after everything that we got from Suffer in Hell, I was getting real greedy in terms of my experiences with Chelsea Grin videos, which were up until this point incredible because they were cream of the fucking crop.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
And this one is like a really, really standard deathcore video, more in this in line with like Hostage, but also not as cool as that one.
No, this feels like the kind of video that a lot of your
Your big boy deathcore.
No. This feels like your meat and potatoes type deathcore video. This is the one that really like sends the regulars out of their minds. They're like, yo, I hate my manager. This shit speaks to me.
Right.
I would
What do
kill
you
them given the opportunity.
fucking mean you're going to take my forklift license
That's
away?
precisely the way.
Yeah.
That's precisely the way. Hey, I've been there. I understand it. More than once. So the thing is that yes, the video does feel a little bit lackluster, which does undercut what I think is sort of another strong single from this band. And you know,
the video,
it's respectfully because the last couple of videos I watched from this band were absolutely out of this world phenomenal.
Insane. And funny and all that. Like they just were very visually impressive. The songs that went along with them are great.
And then speaking of Tom Barber, Caliber TV dropped a live performance of Darko this week, and watching Tom Barber on that is an absolute spectacle.
Yeah. And so, like you said, Meat and Potatoes video, it also doesn't feature the band performing. It also just has like a very repetitive vibe. Like,
which is almost the point of the video for what it's worth. It's, life is a prison, and, the prison...
Your routine is a prison.
Prison guard is a middle manager who yells at you every day.
Feels like a very heavy-handed metaphor. They don't really leave a whole lot up for interpretation, and like when it's all said and done, like one small misstep in the greater scheme.
My excitement has not suffered
not
in
at all.
heaven or hell.
The Used,
final news story,
last but not least, are The Used with their new track People Are Vomit. The Used have a new album entitled Toxic Positivity, and it drops on May 19th. And
I'm sorry, but this is going to be toxic negativity on my end, and I hate to close the show out on such a negative note, but for me personally, this might be one of the worst songs from The Used in terms of an album rollout that I've heard, like a lead single. And that's incredibly frustrating because I also did not feel strongly about the last single, which I think was called Fuck You or something along those lines.
Is Fuck You, like, is that on the track listing? Do we know?
Check.
Right.
And this is even more infuriating because it comes off the back of Paradise Lost, which was the lead single for the last album, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal and ended up being an incredibly strong record overall. And I do not at this point have that level of confidence in this upcoming Used record. And that's, just layers and layers upon frustration because we're also coming off of that Burke McCracken feature for Black Bear last year, which was such a home run and I thought was such a showcase for Burt in particular. And they really stood out on that track. And now it's like, hey, we're going to kick back into The Used and win a new album, new era, and this just is...
Feldman is still behind the wheel, too.
I don't hear them whatsoever, and this track in particular is just... A lot of my issues with this track is just it sounds very by the numbers. It's on its surface, it seems compelling, and it has this, cute, gross little name that The Used is very good at when it comes to creating a quirky title or lyrics for your song. But then you get into...
To cut you off just for a second, Fuck You is another single, but it doesn't look like the track listing has actually been confirmed one way or another.
Okay, so maybe both of these songs won't make it.
Hopefully.
I'm sorry, that's just honestly how I feel about this, and this is coming from literally the biggest Used fan on the planet, who this band has been my whole personality for 20 years. It is brutal to get into a song where the meat of the chorus is hey, hey, whoa, whoa.
It feels very, was it entitled Vulnerable?
Yes.
What was that? The last one they did with Feldman before they went and did like the fucking Canyon or whatever. Like, man, you're right. Like, I feel like where we last left off with The Used was very promising, and now, like even the features, like you said, Black Bear, and now we're back into the album cycle, and like, boy, howdy, have these two fucking singles sucked.
It's like it's trying to be fun and serious all at once, and it just ends up being bland.
What's really weird too about these singles is it's like, it is bland, it is weird, but there are good parts in the songs, but as a whole, none of it's working.
Yeah, it's almost like even when it grips me for just a second, it loses me, you know, almost just as quickly. in
Right,
another
and
bit.
that's what I mean. It's like it's not like you hate all of it, but like by the time it's over, it's like, wow, that wasn't good. It had good parts, but it wasn't good.
And I expect more from the and those are expectations that they've set with how strong their last record was.
Yeah.
Hey, hope everybody enjoyed the show. Once again, every link you need in the description of this episode. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Good fucking.
Blood.